All right. So in the past with deep dives, we have had like a specific topic, like the real estate purchase contract, or last time we did cancellations. We spent an hour on how to properly cancel in different ways. And I talked to the 9 o'clock group and said, are there anything specific that you would like to cover or address? Because, I feel like I've covered a lot of those things. And granted, we have new agents jumping in, and I should probably go back and cover those things again. But at these meetings, where are the new agents? Like it's typically the same group here over and over again. And so we've got the people that are, maybe watching the recording that we do, but I've got a recording of those other meetings. So I don't feel like I need to go over the purchase contract again and again, unless you guys request it. So by request, I had a couple of things come up that you guys wanted to talk about. Is there anything else that's just off the top of your guys' minds besides the two things that were brought up in the 9 o'clock meeting? Does anybody here, because we've got a few new faces here that weren't here at 9, have scenarios or anything that you want to do a deep dive into? Okay, if something comes up, let me know. This will be a little bit more free flowing today. Before we get started though, I would like, Alan is just connecting here. I want to have him take a mortgage minute for us and give us, Alan, can you take a mortgage minute for us and give us an update on the market, interest rates, all that good stuff?
I'd love to. Thank you. I got good timing.
Where's your sunglasses?
Dude, I got the glasses. Don't you worry.
All right. There you go.
Yeah, man. I can maybe still see my screen. They say, dress for the job you want. So today I'm dressing for a tourist in Maui. That's the job.
You look like Ray Charles.
Dude.
That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me.
Can you hear me?
Drew's got his Hawaii shirt on.
Yeah,
dude,
bro. Because you know how we went to Hawaii together.
Yeah, we're Hawaii buddies. Of all random things, where I'm like walking through the Polynesian Cultural Center, and who do I see? But Drew hanging out in our Hawaiian finery.
1 in a million, buddy.
In our Hawaiian finery.
All right. I feel like I want to be part of the in crowd here, though. So can I make a confession to you guys and be a little bit vulnerable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. This is
You've recorded this.
That's gonna live rent free in my head for a while. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
All right.
You want to hear about interest rates? Okay, so
let's do
here's the good news on interest rates. The good news on interest rates, and I'm gonna see if I can pull this up on my screen and show you so you can see what I'm talking about here. I'm gonna get technical mortgage guy for just a second, but I think this is useful to see because it's gonna make you feel better about what's going on. So let's see if I can make this work. And Carson, you just texted me the same question. So if you want to talk in more detail, I'm happy to do that with you as well.
Alan, I made
Am I going to be technical?
Share your screen if you want.
I'd love to, but I'm on my.
Okay.
I'm not that fancy.
Okay.
In Zoom. How do you flip the screen on this thing? I don't know.
You don't.
Okay. This is not useful for me to see. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Okay. Can you see that? See picture?
It's very
Jake, how do I defuzz my screen? There it is.
There you
Okay.
go.
All right. You see that chart right there. What that chart represents is the mortgage-backed security market over the last 1 year period. Right here, where it's high, this is inverse to rate. So this is low rates. This is high rates. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this is 1 year ago as we were still kind of in these record crazy low rates, sitting in the 4s and 5s and coming up. Right here is last November when rates hit about 7.25. And here's what's really important about this. You can see this chart and kind of draw a line along the bottom right here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
A lot of what happens in the interest rate market is based on technical trading, meaning you've got large bond holding agencies that hold billions of dollars of bonds. And when they hit certain levels, they either have to trade or they want to trade, and they buy or they sell based on these technical trading levels. And what's driving the bond market, which is the mortgage-backed security market, which is mortgage rates, is things like the expectation of inflation, the expectation of what the Fed is going to do, the expectation of what the White House is going to do, the expectation of what oil is going to do. And you can notice a common word in all of that, which is expectation, right? The reality is not the key. The key is what we think is going to happen tomorrow. And then when the event actually occurs, then it changes the dynamic. And so what we're seeing here is rates were hitting the very, very high point in November, is that there was this expectation that inflation was going to continue at 7 or 8%, which is what was driving rates up. As we go forward through January, we see rates improve, and rates got to the lowest level of this year back on February 1st. Worsened, got better, worsened, got better. And here's why this is important. This is where we are right now today, is over at this far end. And so I'm going to move my cursor so you can see. You can take a straight line and draw it across over here and here. And where this matters is this has become kind of a ceiling, because remember, this chart is inverse to rate. A ceiling for interest rates are likely to go. And you can see how it hit here and bounced off, and it hit here and bounced off, and it hit here and bounced off. So what this means, I'm going to zoom this into a 6-month chart. You can see that same sort of thing. What this means is I think we have probably hit the peak of what we're going to see on interest rates, at least in the immediate term. So rates today are ranging, depending on your situation, where you're at, ranging somewhere between 6.5% and 7% for an owner-occupied property, depending on your credit score and the type of loan you're doing, maybe even a little lower for FHA and VA. That's probably the peak of what we're going to see. And you can see these green things right here. Again, I'll move my cursor and just point. These green things right here, each one of these bars is 1 day. So these green things right here represent the last 4 days of trading in the bond market, which is mortgage-backed securities. Green is good. You can see how this is trending back up, again, inverse to rate. What this tells you is interest rates have been improving the last 4 days and have now got back to this floor that we'd established here for the last 6 months. That's a really good sign that we're likely to see interest rates hold at or near the current levels, and maybe see some improvement in the coming months. If I were to project forward into the future, I think we are likely to see interest rates kind of bounce around between where we're at right now, which is, again, mid to high 6s, depending on people's situation, low 6s if they've got a perfect scenario. I think we're going to stay about at that level and maybe a 0.5 point better. But that 0.5 point is going to be very erratic. So you can see here, rates better, rates worse. So this is June. In the month of June, rates went up and down, had a swing of about 0.5%. In the month of May, we had a similar thing. In the month of April, pretty steady. And this is a really important piece right here, because during the month of April, people kind of had a general idea that the Fed thought they knew what they were doing and that the market was going to stabilize. And as a result, interest rates held at a very nice, stable level of just a little bit under 6%. And rates under 6% are psychologically incredibly valuable, because people see a 5 at the beginning of their rate and they think, oh, now I can afford to buy a house. So if we can just get to this place, and what this place is the Federal Reserve basically having a consistent message of what they're going to do. If we can get back to that place, which is likely to happen, then we're going to see interest rates probably drop 0.5 point and stabilize at that level. And I think that that's possible to see still this calendar year. The thing that is going to change that is when you hear all the erratic news coming out of the White House or coming out of the Federal Reserve. And the biggest news right now is the Federal Reserve meeting. Out of the last meeting, after every meeting, they have this thing they put out called the Beige Book. You'll see it in the news now that you know what it is. And what that is, the summary of the negotiation and debate between the Federal Reserve and what they were going to do. The challenge we've had with the last couple of Beige Book releases is that the only consensus between the Board of Governors for the Federal Reserve, which is the people who decide all this stuff, the only consensus is that they have no consensus. Like, that's it. Literally, the consensus was, we don't know what we're doing, and we don't agree on what we're going to do next. And that's why we saw rates go real erratic, is because that's the message they're broadcasting. If we can step back into a place where they can say, okay, we kind of have a handle on what's going on, and we're now moving forward with some kind of logical progression, even if that progression is we're going to raise rates, even if that progression is we're going to keep rates the same, we will see interest rates improve just by taking out the instability of the Federal Reserve not knowing what they're doing. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. So that's kind of what's driving it. The news that I would broadcast to buyers is that interest rates have stabilized. And the real interesting thing on this is there's been some studies that have been done. An improvement of interest rate by 1% brings in 1 million additional buyers nationwide.
Wow. So
I looked yesterday, there's 3,534 single family homes, including a few trailer homes in the entire MLS right now. in Utah. Does that number sound right? According to the online systems, 3,534, at least searchable on the public MLS as of yesterday. Single family homes, not condos, not townhomes. That's it. So if rates improve by 0.5%, what that does nationwide, it brings about 350,000 additional buyers nationwide. So if rates do improve by 0.5% from where we're at right now, which I'm telling you is a fairly likely outcome inside of the next 4 to 5 months, just think about what that's going to mean for the number of buyers that are going to flood into the market in the next 4 to 5 months, because they're looking for that 5% trigger on the mail or the billboard or whatever to say, okay, it's time for me to buy. And when that happens, all these buyers flood back into the pool. And Jake Lee, when you have a whole bunch of new demand with no additional supply, what happens to price?
Straight up.
Go up. And so when you're talking to people who are on the fence right now, I think this is really valuable information to just have the thumbnail sketch example of what I'm telling you, which is the general expectation is that interest rates between now and 6 months from now are likely to improve. But if you wait for rates to improve, you're also going to see home prices go up. There was a report that just came out this morning that showed nationwide home prices have now hit a record high. We're now higher than we were last May, according to this Case-Shiller index. So what's happened? The market stabilized. We're not losing market now. And if interest rates do come down, which again is the general expectation, I think is realistic to expect, you're going to see buyers just drive into the market, and all of these homes that are semi-available now, right? We're going to see the time on sales pick up, and it's going to go a little bit crazy, and we're going to see home prices continue to rise and a lot of upward pressure, especially on anything that's even semi-affordable. So that's the message I'm taking to clients is, here's where rates are. The idea, and you keep hearing this, and I think the phrase is stupid. I hate it. You know, the marry the house, date the rate. I hate that. I don't know why, it just doesn't appeal to me. But the concept is fairly valid of, listen, find a house, get into a house that works for you at this current price. And with the expectation that it's very likely that in the next 18 months, rates will come down. And then there's a refinance opportunity to make it even more affordable. But now you're not fighting for the house value with everybody else on lower rates. You're already in, and then take advantage of a better rate when it becomes available and make your payment even more affordable. But that's kind of my expectation where rates are going to go and where they're at right now. Does that help?
Thanks, Alan.
You got it.
A quick search,
You mentioned
8,045
that-
homes active on the market in Utah right now with the.
Is that single family or does that include townhouses and condos?
I'll share my screen. So the search criteria is Utah and active. It includes, get that out of the way. So I can do a search. This is all residential. So it doesn't include any multi-unit, any land, any farm, any commercial. That's all just residential of all sorts. So 8,045.
Interesting.
Carson, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering if Alan, if you could send that article over to me that said the house prices that are at their all-time high.
Yeah, let me find that. It was off of Market Watch, and they've instituted a paywall. So I don't know if I can actually share it, but I can probably share the headline. I'll find something that's not behind a paywall and stick it on the equity page. How about that?
Okay.
Perfect, that works.
And then I've got a question. Who is Racha? R-A-C-H-A. Want to make sure we're.
Oh, it's Rachel Black. I don't know why it's not showing my whole name.
Usually in the top right, you can, if you hold your mouse over the top right, you can rename yourself.
Okay.
But yeah, I just like to make sure that we have real people from our office on here, because we're giving away like top secret information here,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll go ahead and rename myself right now.
Thanks,
But
Rachel.
yeah, I don't know why it even showed up like that. I didn't name myself Rachel.
Well, I almost threw you out, so it was a close call.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric.
All right. So one of the first questions that came up that you guys wanted to talk about is when is it okay to allow mistakes in the contract to not be fixed? This came from Rachel. She is very meticulous with her paperwork. It makes her a great mentor, but she's dealing with one, and we talked about it this last week, and I'll share the screen here over to the MLS. So, okay. So we'll go to our forms library, and let's say that, let's see. Let's say that instead of using the closing cost addendum, somebody uses, and in fact, let me, I'm going to add a blank addendum here to this so that we can kind of see the two. Let's see. Oh, down here. Okay, so let's say that instead of using the closing cost addendum, we get an offer, we're representing the seller, and they've come down here and they've typed in as item number 1, all right. We used to see this language all the time on everything, right? Do we call it out? I'm asking you guys, you can unmute yourselves, you can chat. This is because, as you know, we have a closing cost addendum, right? And the closing cost addendum says something different. It says, if we put the same $5,000 in there, seller agrees to contribute a settlement, the amount of $5,000 to be applied at buyer's discretion toward any or all of the following: a permanent reduction, a temporary reduction in the mortgage loan interest rate so they could buy down their rate with it, mortgage financing costs, which are actual costs of the loan, closing costs, which would be other things that aren't the financing costs. You know, you'll get escrow costs and stuff built in there, prepaids or escrows, which would be like your home warranty, things like that. And any unused portion of this $5,000 could be used to reduce the purchase price. All right. So what happens when a buyer gives us an offer that says this instead?
That if it doesn't go towards closing costs, they don't have to, it goes back to the seller at close.
So what kind of conversation do we have with our seller? And do we fix this problem?
We ask the seller, we tell them that this could be a benefit to them. Do they want to sell it? Because that probably wasn't the intent of the buyer's agent, but that's not our problem, right?
Right. Yeah. Now, there are times, because state law does say that we're required to use the correct forms, right? So, and I haven't pulled up state law here. It would take me a little while to scroll through and find it. I'm not going to do that right now. But state law does require us that we don't make up our own language, that we use the forms that are prepared for us. Or we can have an attorney prepare forms, or our clients' attorneys can prepare forms. And all of these forms here, in fact, almost all of them, if you look, this is the blank addendum. So this one, you notice down at the bottom, this form is approved by the Utah Real Estate Commission and the offices of the Attorney General. Okay, so this is a blank addendum. It's available to the public. If you go to the Division of Real Estate's website, you can find the blank addendum there. But this closing costs addendum, you see the stamp up here in the corner? All right, this one is copyrighted by the Utah Association of Realtors for use solely by its members. So, in fact, this was a part of my Thursday training last week. We talked about common pitfalls for agents. And we have an agent that just joined us named John Bobo. He used to own and operate, I think, 3 different franchises down in Arizona. He just relocated from Arizona, moved up here, joined my office. But he was on my Thursday training last week when we talked about some of the common pitfalls that agents get in trouble with. He said that they had an agent down there giving out the purchase contract just to help people. Like, hey, you need a copy of the contract? Here you go, here you go, here you go. They got sued for over $1 million and lost, okay? Because they were acting like an agent. You know, the topic was implied agency. They were acting like an agent to all these people, and they got burned for it. So a couple lessons that we learned from this, and this isn't the lesson that I meant to teach here, But one of the values that we have, because we just passed dues time, right? Some of the boards are still collecting dues right now. And we always wonder, what are my dues going for? You know, like I see the magazine that I get, or some of you don't even see it. It comes to the office and I throw it away because I get a big stack at the office. So what do I get for these dues? One of the best values that we get are the attorneys that are creating all of our tools. If we didn't have this, if you go to the Division of Real Estate's website, and if you've never been here before, all right. So you've got, if you go in here and you look at some of the different things that you have available, state approved forms. This is it. Real estate purchase contract, FHA VA loan addendum, the seller financing addendum, the blank addendum that we just looked at, title company earnest money addendum. So all of these, by the way, these are ones that are state approved and they're required by law that you use. That's why we cannot write in earnest money to be held with XYZ title company in accordance with state law. That's what we always used to write. We have to use this form now. It's been created and approved by the state. So it's one that we have to use. An assumption addendum, the buyer finance information sheet used to be used with the seller financing addendum, lead-based paint disclosure, lead-based paint addendum, uniform real estate contract, all-inclusive trust deed. Guys, basically, in effect, if we look at these, it's the purchase contract, FHA VA addendum, and the blank addendum, and the title company addendum. None of these other things get used. So if this is somebody's toolbox, this is the challenge that a for sale by owner has. And by the way, most of them don't even know where to find these forms. Most people that are trying to do a deal themselves, they're going to Google. And they're going to Google a real estate purchase contract. But can you imagine if this were your toolbox? How effective would you be? So when we see some of the value of all of the different forms, you know, when we go back to this forms library and you scroll down through here and you see all of these forms over here on the left, and even some of these over on the right, but all of these forms over on the left, most of these, like 98% of them, are created by our attorneys so that you guys have this immense toolbox that you can solve problems with. So, Rachel Bitton, are you?
I'm here.
Okay. So your husband's a contractor, electrical, right?
Yes, and general.
And general. What if he had a hammer and a screwdriver? How effective would he be at his job? Flathead screwdriver, mind you, not a Phillips. That would be too extravagant.
Not very effective.
Could he potentially complete a job
Maybe.
if it was
Not very
super
good.
simple?
Yeah.
It'd have to be a really simple job, right?
Yes.
Okay, guys, that's what a lot of agents are out there doing. They're not in here studying. They don't know the tools in their toolbox. Rachel, how many tools does your husband have?
All of them. He has a lot.
Is it safe to say thousands and thousands of dollars worth of tools?
Yeah.
Because it makes a difference in his job, right? Makes a difference. Not only can he do the job, can he do the job quickly? Can he do it correctly? And so, guys, when we are over here looking at all of these forms, are you aware of all the tools in your toolbox? Do you know how to use them? So one of the things that I do in my trainings is, you know, when we talk about different forms and things like this that agents have available, I try to encourage you to have a recurring activity put in there in your calendar. If you're a brand new agent, then it should be a daily task for you to get in every day and for a half hour, study your forms. So what I would do is I would pull up here and I'd be like, okay, an addendum, an exclusive right, addendum to the exclusive right to sell listing agreement and agency disclosure for a short sell. Ugh, I don't know what that is. And if I don't know what it is, just looking at it, I'm going to open it up and I'm going to read it today. Okay. I'm going to go through it in some detail. And then, even though I'm not going to remember all of those details, I'll remember next time somebody's talking about short sells, I'll be like, you know what? I actually have a tool for that. And even though I don't remember all the details in it, I can go and I can find it again. And if you're not super comfortable or know where to find some things, like there's a lot of times with my brain. In fact, I had a meeting with some of my agents last week. We got together for lunch real quick. And I was talking about how fuzzy my brain was. I think I had a headache that day. And they mentioned this, I don't know, some vitamin. So I ordered it on Amazon. I'm taking it, super clear-headed right now. I never forget anything. Just kidding. Sometimes I'll just get a vague impression of what a form was. I'm like, it has something to do with this. It's a notice. Okay. I remember I need to send a notice to somebody. So I can come up here in this search bar and I can just type in notice. And here's all the notices. And I can scroll through this list and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the one that I'm looking for right there. So recurring activity for brand new agents, 30 minutes every single day. Go in here and read your forms. Okay. Know the tools that are in your toolbox. Because if you're out there operating with a flathead screwdriver and a hammer, you're not getting the job done very well, or the only job that you can safely take on is a very vanilla job. And quite frankly, your value isn't shining forth there. Monica, you had a question.
Yes, I just wanted to know, since we don't have perfect memories and photographic memories, all of us, is there a sort of a foolproof way to be able to know when we should be using one of those specialized UAR forms versus going into the blank addendum and pulling in those, you know what I mean, a la carte sort of phrases?
Yeah.
If you have sort of an a la carte situation where you need to pick and choose a few of them and make it only one addendum versus 6, is there a way to do that other than just ask somebody, hey, do you know if there's a form for this, or go in and search?
Let me show you and see if I'm understanding correctly.
Is there an if-then statement that we could do?
Okay, so this is what you're talking about here, is these clauses that you can drag over.
Yes.
Okay, that has the exact language of all of those other clauses. They're just individualized. So let's say that I wanted to do the closing cost addendum. I can grab that and bring it over here. I can load it up. And boom, I've got all that language. Okay, just as you would have it in, if I go to the next form here. So this is the blank addendum, and I just loaded that in.
Is this a no-no that I'm like, I don't want to totally confuse everybody, but is that a no-no to do?
No.
If there's an actual form for it?
No, that's the exact language you need to use. So you can drag it over there. So for example, if we looked at this language right here, right? I don't know if I can copy and paste from these programs, but if I looked at this language, because all of this up here is just boilerplate stuff, right? This is just, mention the buyer and seller. All of that's the same on any addendum. All of this language down here is the same from any addendum. So this is really the meat of the closing cost addendum right here. It's just this section 1.1, right? So if I go to this previous form and I look at what was pulled over, and this is my addendum number 1, it doesn't have the title closing cost addendum. But if I look at the language here, I don't know if I can paste. Oh, I can. It's the exact same. Okay, so I just copied and pasted from that other addendum. So this says 1 closing cost addendum, and this language right here, if we compare what I copied and pasted from the closing cost addendum to this language that just imported over, when I dragged and dropped it, it's the exact same. So the question is, why wouldn't I just want to drag and drop it? Or why would I want to drag and drop it? And why not just, why not just use the closing cost addendum? Why would I want to drag and drop it? Well, again, if I go back to the closing cost addendum and look at it, I've got room for this language, but what if I wanted to add a couple of other things as well? Okay, I don't have any space to do it here. Whereas if I drag and drop with that blank addendum, not only do I have all of this language, but I could come down here and I could add a point number 2, because point number 1 is the closing cost addendum. And I could add point number 2 that the settle deadline to be, okay, and I can change that. And those are the 2 things that I wanted to address. Now I don't have to do it on addendum 1 and addendum 2, I can get it all on addendum 1. You know, now sometimes if I'm dragging and dropping a bunch of things, this will be a really long addendum and it'll carry over to 2 and 3 pages. And so I don't love doing that, but you can. And not everything that I need in the toolbox is going to be over here for me to drag and drop. There's only a few forms that are available for me to drag and drop like that. So it is going to be pretty common sometimes that we've got a couple of different points. We can't see the forms in here and we need to address it, you know, with the correct addendum because we don't find it here to drag and drop. But if you can drag it and drop it and it's in this list, you're perfectly fine.
There's almost, when I'm represent the buyer, there's always at least 2 that I drag these clauses. And one is the earnest money. And then the other one is closing costs. And so I almost always will use these clauses instead of having 3 addendums.
Yeah.
So one time Eric asked me if I'm using the earnest money addendum. And I'm like, I never use that addendum. And Eric's like, I want to kick you in the balls right now. But it's because I use the clause. I use the clause instead of the addendum because I'm usually using something else. One of those other clauses.
That's not one of the clauses available though.
Yes, it is.
No.
Earnest money to be held at the title company.
Yeah, it's not an available clause in here.
Oh, it used to be. I
Not
almost.
now. I'm gonna
Huh?
kick you in the balls.
Well, that tells you how long the last time I represented a buyer. But I feel like I just sold a house here a month ago and it was there.
If the clause is there, you can use it. Okay. And they may have changed it, Drew, because the state did make it one of their forms. You know, when we went to the state's website,
Yeah.
you guys are all seeing my screen, right? Yeah. So when we go to the state website, that's one of the few forms that the state actually created. And
So
everybody has
that's
access.
really weird because I know just within the last 30 days I've used that. So if it's not there, they've taken it off just recently.
They might have, which is one of the good reasons why I encourage agents, by the way, if you haven't heard me before, please fill out your forms from the MLS. Even SkySlope, I've demonstrated this with a few of the changes that they made. SkySlope gave us 3 different versions of the addendum to the exclusive right to sell listing agreement. Only one of the 3 addendums was updated. Whereas if I go to the Legacy Forms library, everything was updated. Okay. I mean, I only had one option and it was the current option. If I go to .loop, they're 2 or 3 weeks behind. So SkySlope is not up to date all the time. .loop is not up to date all the time, but the forms library is. So if I fill out my contract in the forms library, save it as a PDF and load it into .loop from there, then I just have to add my signatures and initials and I'm good to go. And I know I'm always using the most current version of the forms because this is the first place that it gets uploaded to. You know, of course, barring searching for it on the UAR website, which none of us ever do. So let's go back.
Hey, Eric, can I ask you a quick question on that note?
Yes.
So this is Rachel Black.
Not
So
Racha?
if you run into somebody looking at that division website that is like adamant that they're not going to use a real estate agent,
Yeah.
and they know that I'm a real estate agent and they just ask for my advice, like, oh, where do I find like forms? Should I just like stay completely out of it just to avoid implied agency? Or should I say, go to the division website, or like, how would you handle that?
You're safe saying, you know, you can get a basic contract and a basic addendum on the Division of Real Estate's website. You're
Okay.
safe to say that. Okay, that's public record. You're not acting as their agent. And then I would say, but that's all that you have. And I would say literally there's probably over 100 forms that fit different scenarios. So unless you have the very most simple, basic, like what if somebody wants to buy your house, but they have another home to sell? Do you see the subject to sell on here? Nope. Do you see the option to keep house on market time clause addendum, which would be your response to the subject to sell? Nope. So I'll just give them a couple of scenarios. You know,
Okay.
what if somebody asks for closing costs? Is that available to you? That's a very simple one. That comes up with almost every buyer.
Mhm.
And then I'll ask them. And I'll say, what if, you want to negotiate closing costs? And so you put, where's our, did I get rid of that language? Oh, I did. Okay, so let's say that we're going back here to our blank addendum, and we've got both of them right here. So we'll just let's see. We'll go our standard language. So I'll have this conversation with them. I say, here's a scenario. You're a buyer, you want to buy somebody's home. You don't feel like you need a real estate agent, but you want to ask for the seller to pay for your closing costs. How do you do it?
Right.
You write it on
That's
a
it.
napkin.
Hold on, bro.
And that's it. And they say, well, we'll ask them in an addendum. I say, okay,
Mhm.
all you've got is a blank addendum. What language are you going to use?
Mhm.
And they're going to say, I don't know. That's
And
why,
they'll be like, what's your advice? And then I'll say, hey, if you want my advice, you need to hire me.
yeah. And that's where I say, I cannot give any professional advice without creating agency by implication. That
Okay.
means that you see me as your agent. You could point the finger and say, hey, she gave me advice. And so now I have liability. So if you want my advice, then I am required to have a contract with you that states clearly that I'm representing you, that I'm helping you, but I don't
Mhm.
help you for free. But wait, I'm
Right.
your mom. Are you serious? Or I'm your sister, or I'm your best friend. I said, would my mom, my sister, or my best friend ask me to put my professional license and my ability to provide for my family in jeopardy? Would my best friend ask me to do that?
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Eric. And then as far as like, because I actually did have this come up, that's why I'm glad that we're talking about it. Could I do a CMA for them as a courtesy, or is that even doing like implied agency?
You can do a CMA for them as a courtesy, but if they say, hey, I don't plan on using you, could you do a CMA for me? I'd be like, no.
Okay. I think at this point, I'm gonna say, hey, if you don't want to hire as an agent, and you're 100% gonna go through on your own, my best recommendation is to just talk to an attorney for any questions that you may have if you don't want to go through an agent.
Yeah. So I'm going to be very direct with people. And I'm going to say, look, here's the value that I provide. Let me come sit down. Let me do a presentation for you. Because I don't want to try to guilt trip them, right? I want to do a presentation first with them and just say, before you make the decision, let me present to you and tell me everything that I would be doing to help you before you make this decision to go on your own. Everything, I keep coming back. This is our challenge for the month of July. I've got a Ring doorbell on the line for it. We just had our 9 o'clock meeting where we heard how people are doing, but it's a Ring doorbell goes to the winner of whoever sets and goes on the most appointments, whether it's a buyer appointment or a listing appointment. You actually deliver a presentation communicating your value. It's not driving people around in a car. It's communicating, sitting down with them, doing a presentation, communicate your value either as a buyer's agent or a listing agent. So if you sit down with them and you communicate your true value as a buyer's agent or a listing agent, and they say, no, thanks, can you do it all for free? Then I'm going to be very direct. And I'm going to say, look, here's how this works. Okay. I love to help my friends out, but friendship's a two-way street. I want my friends to love me as well. I've invested countless hours into the skills that I just told you about. Okay. I invest money every single month in platforms and tools that help me do a good job for you. And so when you come to me and you say, can you work for free? That doesn't sound like a very good friend. Okay. And I'm just being blunt with you because I can be blunt with my friends. I can be direct with my friends.
Right.
Right. So out of respect for you as my friend, I'm being direct with you right now. And I'm going to tell you, I will not help you out because you're asking me to put myself in financial jeopardy, and a friend would not do that. And the financial jeopardy that I could be in is if I help you in any way. There's a concept called limited agency. And I don't expect you to know this law, but I know the law because I'm a good real estate agent. And this concept of limited agency says that if you go off and you get into trouble, and I helped you even just a little bit, and so you go off on your own and not knowing that you're even getting into trouble, you do get into trouble. And then in your conversations with your attorney, because everybody sues each other, you say, well, my friend Rachel is a real estate agent and she told me this. Now everybody's ears perk up and say, oh, we've got somebody else we can name in a lawsuit. And guess what? They have E&O insurance. There's deep pockets we can tap into. And now your friend, whose attorney says, oh, I know she's your friend, but don't worry, she's got E&O insurance. That's a $25,000 deductible, but the attorney doesn't tell your friend that. Guys, we see friends, family members suing each other all the time, showing up on those division records. Hey, I was just helping my friend out. Okay. So I'll have this conversation with my friends or my clients, and I say, you know what? I am being direct with you, and it may be potentially offensive, but it's part of a friendship, is we can have these blunt conversations, is you're putting me in a jeopardizing position. So I can either help you or I can't, but I don't go midway, because even going midway, even giving you any forms, creates this concept of agency by implication, which gives me some liability there. So,
Eric,
Great.
I've got a question.
yeah, Monica.
Thank you so much, Eric. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
What's wrong with if a friend or family member wants us to do a CMA for a certain purpose and we give them the opportunity to pay us for it, pay the
Nothing.
broker? Is there something wrong with that?
Nothing's wrong with that. They just have to pay through the brokers. The check has to be made out to the company. That's state law. It's not company policy. It's state law. So you're doing something that you have to have a real estate license to do. Otherwise, you would not have access to the MLS, right? If you didn't have a license. And so anything that you do that requires a real estate license, any compensation arising thereof or therefrom would need to come through the brokerage and to you. So if let's say that somebody said, hey, can you give me a CMA? And you said, sure, I'll charge you $300, right? Our costs for any type of payroll, our hard costs are about $150. So that's what we're going to take out of it. So if you're going to do it for $300, you'll make $150. So you say, yeah, I can do that for you. It'll cost you $300. And they'd write a check out to Equity Real Estate. You'd include a little letter in there that, in fact, I would have them sign it. I would just have them sign saying, hey, this is just to do a market analysis for my home. We're paying $300 for it. Client sign it. I put that in the file so that I've got a record of it. And, there's no agency created by this, implied or otherwise. And they sign it. And then if ever anybody has a question, I can pull that up and we know why I got paid $300. Okay. But again, if somebody's going to say, hey, can you just do it to me for free as a favor? Quite frankly, could I legally do a CMA as a favor for a friend without creating agency by implication? Probably, because we do CMAs all the time. We go out on listing presentations. We don't win them all, but we did a CMA for them. We reviewed it with them. So legally, yeah, I could probably do that and get away with it. But folks, this is my business. It's okay for me to act like a business person. And when was the last time that an industry you went to your friend, the doctor, hey, can you just give me a couple of stitches? Sure. Come down to the doctor's office, but they don't take you into their back room and just give you a couple stitches for free. Or you call up your doctor friend and say, hey, my son just fell on his bike. He smacked his head really hard. What would you recommend? What's the doctor going to tell you 10 times out of 10? You're all muted.
Come to my office and I'll check them out.
Yeah, because otherwise they have liability, right? If they say, you know what, he'll probably be okay. Just, observe him overnight and then he dies overnight. Guess who gets sued? Your friend, the doctor, your great friend who helped you out for free. You're going to sue his ass because he told you to observe your kid overnight. There is not a doctor in the world that would do that. He's going to say, bring him down to the office. Let's get him checked out. Let's just make sure, or I'm out of town. Take him into the ER, whatever, get him checked out, better safe than sorry. But they're never going to tell you, sit home and just observe it, because they're going to have liability for that friendship conversation. So guys, we're going to be acting like professionals here. So let's keep going back. I want to have your involvement. I'm the listing agent. Buyer's agent sends me this offer right here. Do I have them fix it and put it on the correct language?
Hell yeah.
I do?
No, because it benefits your seller client.
Yeah.
Which
So this
I don't
one-
know that I love this. You know, I'm a black and white person. I don't love this. It
Yeah.
hurts me.
So this language benefits my client, the seller, doesn't it? Like what if they only have $3,500 in buyer's closing costs? And they're trying to throw in their $500 home warranty, and they're trying to throw in their some prepaids, because they're prepaying their insurance for the year. And I get the closing statement and I say, whoa, we're not paying for, we're paying your closing costs. These other things are prepaids. Are you serious? It's what you wrote in your contract. If you had used the correct addendum, we wouldn't be having this conversation because it's all covered there. Now, do I want to be the asshole? That's the real conversation, right? Here's what I would say is it your decision?
Offer them healthy feedback and let them make their own choice.
Whose decision is it?
The sellers.
It's my
Your
client,
clients.
right? Now, how do I educate my clients in this scenario? I sit down with them and I say, and by the way, you guys tell me, does this make me look good or bad to my client? I sit down with my seller and say, here's the offer that we just got. Here's the correct addendum I printed out so that you guys can see the difference between what they asked for and what they should have used. They did not use this addendum. That's to their detriment. Here's how it could play out for them and how it could be in your benefit. However, if we get to closing and we see that you could save $1,000 by springing this surprise on them at closing, they will not be happy. They're going to be mad at their agent. They're going to be emotional. People always are on closing day anyways. There's a chance they walk away from this deal. Okay? Because people do crazy things when they're emotional. Now, it is not illegal for us to keep this language in here. It could potentially benefit you at closing. But they will be, if it does benefit you, they're going to be very unhappy at that time. And it could also possibly create complications for you at the closing table. Now, do you want me to tell the other agent about their problem and have them fix it? Or do you want to accept this as is? Does that sound right to everybody? Rachel, does that help your feel goods a little bit better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So it is not our choice. Now, if somebody is clearly breaking the law, right? Whether it's a seller filling out their seller disclosures and we review it and we're like, hey, I noticed you didn't mention that water leak that I noticed in my walkthrough. And they're like, oh yeah, we painted over that, so nobody should see it. Okay, that's not legal. We're going to need to fix that, right? Or they're like, yeah, I just wanted to, can you just write up this language and it's some crazy thing, some random thing that we don't have a form for. Then we say, no, we can't do that. We would need an attorney to draft that kind of language. So yeah, if it's something that is illegal, then no, we don't want to do it. We're going to push back. But we are obligated with our fiduciary duty to follow all of our clients' legal instructions. Okay. And it is not our fiduciary duty to make sure that the other agent does all of their paperwork correctly. Sometimes it is. Sometimes they'll use a form that's not correct. Like those list of forms that I showed you from the Division of Real Estate, those are required by law to use. That deposit of earnest money with title company addendum, if you write in your contract, earnest money to be deposited with XYZ title company in accordance with state law, which is what we used to write. All of you guys have been with me for a long time. We have that language memorized. If you wrote that today, you would be in violation of the law. $500 fine is what I'm seeing them give. Because the law clearly states that if a form has been created for you, so if it's a standardized form created by the state, then we must use that form. And in that case, they have created one for us. we must use it. We don't have the option of just writing in the language. Okay. So if another agent has written that in, for example, deposit of earnest money with title company, if another agent just hand wrote it in there, do I need to fix that? Carson, you're muted.
Yeah, I'd say you probably would need to tell them to fix that one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So there are a few forms that we don't let slide. And it's a very short list. But there's a lot of other forms that an agent could handwrite in there that would create confusion. And I would pull my client aside and say, okay, they hand wrote this one in here. Like, for example, the, what was it? It was the appraisal addendum. I saw a lot of agents pushing back on that appraisal addendum. I'll share my screen. We'll go back and look at that one. Okay. In the event the property appraises for less than the purchase price, but equal to or more than X, appraisal floor, buyer agrees that the purchase price shall not be reduced and buyer shall pay the difference between the appraised value and the purchase price and cash at settlement. The terms of this paragraph amend section 8.2 of the REPC. If the appraised value is less than the appraisal floor, then buyer shall have the right to cancel the REPC in accordance with section 8.2a, and then you have additional terms. How many of your eyes glazed over a little bit as I read section 1.1a? Okay, I've had agents write me offers where they write, if the property, let's see, how did they put it? Help me out, you guys that are experienced. How did they use to word this before we got this addendum? Does anybody remember?
There was no wording on the appraisal floor. And it just
Everybody
said,
just made crap. I'm sorry.
yeah, they made crap up and said something like, you know, we're going to offer this, but if the appraisal comes in low, like, then it opened it up to renegotiation. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, I think what they said is, we'll offer $10,000 above appraised value. Right?
Oh, yeah. They would go
Yeah.
over appraised value and they would have their purchase price, but they were assuming they were going to get a deal. That's exactly what it was.
Purchase price to be $10,000 above appraised value. We saw that written in all the time. So I've got an asking price of 500,000. I've got a bidding war escalating this up, and somebody says, we'll offer $10,000 above appraised value. Up to, and they'll put, maybe they put a cap on it, up to 600. Oh, that looks pretty good, right? So we go to that one, and then that agent, and I have seen agents do this, they talk to their appraiser and they say, hey, give me a realistic value on this home, right? I mean, I even heard of an agent just a couple weeks ago that said, don't even look at the purchase contract. I want a realistic value. So the agent's like, or the appraiser's like, okay. And he comes in at 480. Now, mind you, asking price was 500, multiple offers. Somebody said they would give $10,000 above appraisal up to 600. That's who we went with, but we had a lot of offers all the way up to 550. We got an appraisal at 480. What's the purchase price?
490. Right.
Did your sellers agree to that? Did they know that they were agreeing to that? No. So everybody's suing each other. And yet I would get offers where the agents would argue with me. This language is too hard to understand. And I said, well, sorry, the other language that you used has been proven to have people sue each other. We will not entertain your offer with that language. There is a correct addendum. And they said, well, not even my broker understands that addendum. I said, well, I can't help you with that necessarily. I've made a video on YouTube that explains how to use it. You can go watch my video if you want. And then they said, this is a real story, by the way. Then they said, well, my client's an attorney, and even they said it was confusing. And I went back to my client and I said, this is a massive red flag. If an attorney can't understand this language, they're looking for a chance to screw you. I would recommend we go with another offer. And we did. Okay. So if they're using bad language that can create confusion, and I know that it's going to create confusion because I've been to Eric Lee's trainings and deep dive webinars like this. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to accept that. I'm going to have this conversation with my client and help them understand the importance of using the correct language. And we're going to push back on this. This isn't something that could help my client. This is something that could harm my client. I'm going to push back. Okay. So yeah, most of the time when an agent uses the incorrect language or they made up their own language, it's not going to help your client because it's going to lead to confusion, which leads to a lawsuit. Okay. One of the very few instances where we won't correct them would be that one that Rachel ran into where they didn't use the correct buyer's closing cost addendum. And even then, that can create some serious drama at closing and jeopardize the transaction. And most sellers would be like, you know what? Let's just get them to fix it. What do they think of me though? When I come to the seller and I say, we got this offer, they're using the wrong language. I've printed out a blank form so you can see what they should have used. It's not my job to make them fix it because it does put their client in jeopardy. But once this comes out, if it does bite them in the ass, once it comes out, they're going to be upset and it could jeopardize the whole transaction. Do you want to run that risk? You could stand to earn an extra $1,000 maybe. You know, you could stand to gain $1,000 from their error, or they could walk away the last day of closing. How do you want me to proceed? Most sellers will say, have them fix it. Am I going to get referrals from that guy? Yeah, he's going to be impressed. And I don't have to disparage my opponents, right? I don't have to disparage because that's against the code of ethics. I don't have to say these guys are jokers. I can say, I don't know if they're inexperienced. I don't know why they didn't use this form. Maybe they just don't know of it. Maybe they don't study their forms like I do. I don't want to say this guy is such a loser, you know, like I've dealt with him before.
Non-monetary value in it, I feel like, because then you increase the level of trust between that you and that other agent for future deals, possibly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think we have done.
Hey, Eric, if I could chime in as a lender too on this stuff.
Yeah.
With anytime you're writing your own addendum, there's a really good chance an underwriter is going to look at that and go, well, that's nice that the buyer is offering that amount of money, but did the seller ever say that they're accepting that amount of money? And the answer is maybe not. And so I find when people are writing their own addendum on stuff like that, very often just out of underwriting, the underwriter comes back if they're paying attention and says, we have to clarify the language on this anyway. And so it's going to derail the financing for the buyer because the language is unclear before you even get to that point. And so you might not have any choice but to clarify that language if they want to get financing.
Great point, Alan. Thank you for chiming in. I knew there's a reason we let you stay. All right. One last question that we wanted to talk about is approaching potential clients at open houses. And I'm going to open this up to the floor. Okay, we've got some great agents on here with some great experience. I can share my opinions, but I'd like to hear from you guys. You're holding an open house. It's either your own or you're holding it for another agent. This is the scenario. And people are coming through, right? How do you approach them? What are some of the best practices that you can do? First of all, do you have all the open house stuff? Like, do you have a sign? Do you have a couple directionals? Do you have a place for them to sign in? Jake, where could I get some open house stuff?
At our office. For $20.
And why did we provide that to our agents?
So anybody can host an open house.
No, that's not the reason. We provide it because we kick ass. Right, Carson?
Yep, that's it.
That's right. Carson learned that lesson this morning in our 9 o'clock meeting. It's all about kicking ass. So no, we want to be a great brokerage for you. And we know that a lot of you, you're not doing tons of open houses. You don't want to invest $500 in getting signs and all of this different stuff. So we did it for you. And you just come and check it out. We ask for $20 so that we can replace things as it goes. But that's your first step, right? You've got all the stuff that you need to do the open house available for you. And we made it super cheap. Okay. So now you've got all your stuff. You're at the open house. Somebody walks in the door. what's the first thing you have them do?
Have them write their email address on your paper or your some way that you can respond back to them and get feedback or whatever.
Yep. We need to have them sign in, right? Now, if you've got an iPad and KV Core, is there a KV Core open house tool that you guys can use?
Yes, there is.
There sure is. So you can use that. If you don't have that, you can go old school, print out an Excel sheet or whatever, and name, phone number, email address, right? And I'll just say, hey, we have everybody sign in. I need to have a list. The seller has asked that I have a list of everybody that's seen the home. Nothing wrong with that, right? That's a reasonable request from a seller. And if there's any price reductions, if you could leave me your email address, if anything changes in the future on the status of this home, I want to be able to alert you. That's why we ask for your email address. You're not going to get spammed from me. Okay. So everybody signs in. Now what?
How long you been looking? You asking questions, right?
Yeah.
How long
So
you
do you guys have an agent? That's one of the first questions we want to ask, right?
Do you have that on the sign-in form, Eric, that you're referencing? The question of, are you currently represented and what's your agent's name?
Certainly could.
I think every open house I've helped with, that's the thing we always put on that clipboard or put in there is, are you working with an agent? What's their name?
That's great. That's great.
So you know right up front, are they represented or not, and who that agent is.
And if they are represented, how many questions do we ask? Now we're just asking friendly questions. We're just being civil, right? But we're not asking probing questions because this is somebody else's client, you know? So they're represented by somebody else. It's kind of hands off. We do not try to steal other people's clients. I know a lot of agents out there do that kind of crap, but that's not us. We don't do it. It's against both code of ethics and state law. So they've signed in. One of the first questions we ask, and I really do like having it on the form, is, are you represented? What's their name? Okay. Let's say that they are, if they are represented, hands off. If they're not represented, now what?
Have some business cards,
Okay.
share with them.
Okay, we can give them a business card. Now, Monica, I personally don't like giving out business cards. Here's why.
Share of your.
He doesn't have business cards. That's why he hates them.
I have an electronic one I can share, but here's why. Let's say that, okay, I'm the buyer, right? Let's role play, Monica. So you have to unmute yourself.
Okay.
All right. So, hey, you're giving me your business card. So give it to me. Give me your spiel.
And I'm the listing agent.
Yep.
And you come to my open house.
Yep. And I'm an unrepresented buyer.
Awesome. You know, I can save you some money if you want to purchase the house with me. It will speed up the transaction and I can do you a good job. And that's just a shortcut, but yeah.
Okay. So do you have a card?
Sure.
Oh,
Here's my
great. Let
business-
me get that from you.
Yeah.
I get the card. Now what?
I'm assuming that they're gonna go see the house. Am I gonna take them
Yeah.
through and answer any questions for them, you know, and then we'll have a conversation as we go through and
And then as I'm about to leave, what do you
can I give you a call?
you know, I've got your card right here. So let us talk about it and I'll give you a call back.
Well, no.
Isn't that what happens though?
Yes, that's exactly what happens.
That's why I don't give out my card.
Let me meet with you tomorrow and we can see if you have any other questions.
Yep. I've got your card. We'll chat about it a little bit and we'll call you. That's why I don't use cards. So when I'm walking through the home with them, again, if I can have some sort of electronic capture system that says, you know what, if I'm using KV Core, then I'm going to use that. there are different things. I know there's like URLs you can send. There's lots of different technology that you can use. If you're not going to use KV Core, there's different technology, but I really don't like giving out my card because it empowers them at the end when I'm trying to close in any kind of way. It empowers them to say, I've got your card. Let us talk about it and we'll get back with you. It's removed all of my power. If I don't give them my card and they say, okay, now we'll switch roles. Okay. So I'm the listing agent and you say just what I said. Hey, can I get your card?
Can I get your card?
You know what? I actually don't have any cards on me right now, but let me make sure that I've got your correct name, number, and email address from the sign-in sheet. Is this correct for you?
Yes.
Okay, great. I will send you some information afterwards, and then you'll have all of my information there. Okay. So I'll send you a summary of this property. Are there any other properties that you're looking at as well? Is it kind of just this price range, this area? What is it that you're looking for?
We're looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, no stairs, 3-car
Okay.
garage.
Okay. Are you trying to stay in this area, or were you drawn to this house more because of the price range?
No, this is our geographic area.
Okay, great. So what I'll do, if it's okay with you, I've got your information. I'll do a quick search when I get back. I'll see if there's anything else. When I get back to my office, I'll see if there's anything else that matches that criteria, and we'll be in touch. Now, you said that you're not working with an agent. Is there a reason you're not working with an agent?
I like to pick my agents by their performance, and I haven't met you before, so I don't know.
Cool. That's great. That's a perfectly understandable reason. So let me do some of that work. Let's go ahead and walk through the home. We'll see the home. Okay. I've made some notes here of what you're looking for. I'll run a quick search, see if I can find some stuff. And are you available at all the rest of this week? You know, for about a half hour. I actually specialize in working with buyers. I know this is a seller here, but I specialize in working with buyers. I have a little 30-minute presentation that goes over everything that every buyer needs to know before they purchase a home. And it will help you save thousands and thousands of dollars just by having this money. So let's do a quick walk through here. I'll do a search. And then is there a time like tomorrow or the next day we could sit down for maybe a half hour and I can give you all of this other information and I can let you know of any homes that might be up in the area?
Sure. My husband gets home around 7. I think he would like to be there as well.
Okay. So tonight at 7 or tomorrow at 7?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow at 7. All right. I'll put that in my calendar right now. And what's your address?
4108 West, 3670 South, West Valley City.
Okay. I'll come right to your place. And I'm glad that your husband will be there so I can answer those questions and we'll chat then. Let's go see the whole house right now. Okay. So I'll walk them through the house. Now, guys, was I empowered by not giving her my number?
Yeah, you made it work in your favor.
It let me take control. Drew, are you giving me a slow clap?
No.
I couldn't tell. I only saw one hand going in and out of frame.
I want to push back a little bit on your approach because here's the difference between you and me. I mean, there's many differences, but one of us is the principal broker of a massive brokerage, the largest broker in the state, and the other one is me. And so when I don't have a card for you, they're not going to think that guy's doesn't have his shit together. But for me, they might think that. And what she just said was, I haven't seen your performance, and so I don't really hire agents until I can see what they can do. And they might get out of that card and say, that dude didn't even have a card for me. So I like your approach for you. I think that works for you because you're freaking awesome. But for me, that might be a bad thing for me.
So Drew, give him a card at the end. Give him a card at the end. You do the whole script at the end. You say, hey, by the way, here's my card. So you've got my contact information.
Well, okay, but
what I would do, Drew, what I would do is I would say, I would be very direct with them. Okay. Now you can do the old man pat down. You know, I don't have any cards on me, or you can say, you know what? I don't give out cards. Okay. Giving out cards is a cop out for a lot of agents because they avoid some of the awkwardness inherent in talking with people. And I consider that part of my job. I can be more bold if you want me to be.
Okay, that's better.
I
Yeah.
could be more bold. I could be more direct if you want me to be. So you can try that approach. And you
Okay.
can say, you know what, some agents give out their cards and they walk away. But how am I helping my clients out? How am I helping you out in doing so? Let's instead have a conversation right now. I've got your information right here. This is correct, isn't it? Your name, not, you know, that you used on the sign-in sheet. So let's have a conversation. Tell me what you're looking for. Tell me what you're about. Now, I don't get hyper-focused on her one excuse, because do you know what most people do when they're talking to a salesman?
They're avoiding.
Avoiding. And
they
they're
are.
throwing out the first thing that pops into their mind, right?
Yeah.
So is she really, is her number one
No.
excuse really that she wants to work with somebody first for a while before she chooses?
Well,
No, that's her fight or flight response, like, oh shit, this guy's gonna try to sell me something.
I haven't done my research on you yet, so I don't know you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
haven't seen your 5-star reviews and
She's-
talked about people
She's
I know.
throwing out anything that she can right now to not be sold by a salesman.
Yep.
Right? So we're just gonna have a conversation. But yeah, anytime you shift into salesman mode, everybody's red alerts go off and sirens are blaring, like, oh, we need to get out of here. You know, this person's going to try to sell us something. So I like to just have a conversation. And for me, once I give my business card out, it shuts down that conversation. So honestly, I don't know if I can say never, but less than 5 times in 20 years have I had somebody say, tell me all about your credentials. I wanna work, you know, like, cause you're saying, hey, that's fine for you because you're the number one broker and all this stuff. Nobody ever asked me for that.
Right.
I would just think though that not having a card for you works different than the rest of us.
I've been doing this for all but maybe 2 or 3 years of my entire career, way before I was principal broker.
Okay.
So no, it works. It works. But it only works if you're doing the work. Okay.
Right.
If you're like, oh, I don't have a card, sorry. Then you look like a novice, like you don't know what you're doing, like you're scared, like you're timid. Nobody wants that.
I just fill up people's dashboards.
Yeah.
It's fine. I don't
Yeah.
do them. I'm different.
So I just say, you know what? Don't carry any cards on me. I've got your name, number, and information. Tell me what it is you're looking for. Let's have a conversation. Right? But that conversation, you can see how I always try to steer any conversation that I'm having to do what?
Help them.
Follow back up with them.
To land me an appointment.
Mhm.
I don't want to get stuck in follow-up land, right? I'm not trying to push for a sell right here because we have just met. Like, I haven't communicated any value to you yet, have I, Monica? No. Okay. We've chatted a little bit, but she doesn't have any idea what I do as a buyer's agent. And this really isn't the appropriate time for it because I could have another buyer walk in 5 minutes and interrupt my conversation with her. So I want to set an appointment. Every conversation I'm having with somebody, I want to be able to sit down with them and communicate my true value. That's when they hire me. So Liz typed in and said, I think it's vulnerable to not give out a card as a new agent, but I can see why it's a good idea to not give one out. I've used people's cards to call them before, so that's what makes me hesitant. How many of you guys right now, and if you're not willing to share your screen, that's okay. I need you to participate with the reactions. How many of you have business cards on your desk of people that you have not followed up with? On your desk, in your car, you've collected somebody's business card and you did not call them.
Hundreds.
100% of us, 100% of us have a card from somebody that they gave us that we did not contact them. It is 100%. So I've talked to agents, and it varies by everybody because some people, Liz, you've called people before. You've used people's cards to call them before. That's you. I've talked to agents that say maybe 1 in 1,000. I'll give out 1,000 cards. I'll get 1 call back. I've had agents say 2 or 3 out of 100. That's 300%, 300 times better, right? So your experiences are going to vary greatly, but They're still not great odds. Like the best odds I've ever heard from somebody, I said, if you gave out 100 cards, how many people would proactively call you? Most people are saying at the best, 2 or 3 out of 100 of their cards would yield that. Guys, is that a business plan? Or is that banking on luck?
Happy one. It doesn't yield very many results.
So are you going to build your business on luck? Or are you going to, I don't want to gamble with paying my bills. So that's why I don't have a card, because I have more control over it. It's not their job to call me. It's never been their job to call me. I wake up every day, and how many contacts do I need to make, Carson?
What's that?
How many contacts do I need to make every day?
20 if you're full-time, 10 if you're part-time.
Okay. So if I gave out my cards, how hard is it for me to make my contacts? I ain't got nobody to call. If instead I'm gathering information, well, yeah, let me get your name and number. I don't have a card on me right now. Let me get your name and number. I'll put you in my phone right now. I'll shoot you a text so you've got my number. But now I have their information. What are the odds that they hear from me again? 100%. Does 100% beat 2 or 3%? Every day of the week, right? So don't treat your business, don't give your job away to somebody else. It's not their job to call you. Your job is to contact them. Your job is to provide the value. And when you're having that contact, we're not giving away the milk. All right? We're trying to buy the cow. So we want to sit down with them and we want to communicate the value of owning a cow, that you'll get fresh milk every day. Not just a cup today. You'll get fresh.
And if you're
not only that, but go ahead, Rachel.
And if you're an ungrateful mini cow asshole, then you get sold. That's what happened to Snots. Sorry to announce that.
You sold Snots?
We sold Snots. I
Oh,
couldn't do
Rachel.
it anymore.
I want to cry right now.
It was sad.
Rachel, to continue my analogy, have you ever hand milked a cow?
What?
Have you ever hand milked a cow?
Yeah, I tried to, but Snots' udders were like short and, she was a little special, so it didn't work out very well.
Well, tell me this. You've seen cows hand milked. What ends up in the milk?
Dirt and hay and all sorts of stuff.
Sometimes a little bit of poo, right?
Yep.
So when you own the cow and you actually care for it, I mean, if you just give away somebody milk, you're getting all sorts of shit. Literally. Right?
Yes.
Like you want a responsible farmer working for you. I'm just playing this analogy all the way out to its bitter end, where when you hire me, you're not just getting a cup of milk with who knows what's in it. That's what all these other agents are giving you, right? Like I'm filtering that milk for you. We'll pull the cream out so you can have it with your strawberries or your peaches. We'll filter that out. You can have the rest of the milk for the other stuff that you're doing for your baking, right, Rachel?
Yes.
Yeah, we can separate all that out for you, but we'll filter out all the crud. We will be there to protect you and look after you.
Amen.
Well, these other agents just give out cards. I'm like, yeah, that's a cup full of shit. That's not what you want.
Nope.
Okay, so guys, I think we're good. We spent an hour and a half on here today. Most of it was very good. A solid portion of it was me really trying hard to make analogies work for Rachel's sake, because I have to include our resident redneck.
Every time.
I love you guys. Anyways, thanks for joining me today. Was this valuable to you?
Always.
Okay, then we will